Correct.
Yes, there's one.
You go.
Yep, you go. Okay, hello, welcome. Wow, thanks for Katja and Joe for inviting us today. A little bit of a different topic, the Internet of Everything. What is it? Where does it come from? And what has it to do with customer or user experience design? So I will talk about 5 minutes in general about IoE in the community and what we are doing. And then Haroon will continue to talk about the very specific use case or project we are currently doing and what's behind it. Okay? And then hopefully we have 5 minutes or so for questions otherwise afterwards.
Sorry about that. You do have a clicker now.
That's cool. Thank you. Okay, good. So the accent is from Germany. Yeah. Second thing, the Twitter handle. Yes, I did it. I went to MIT, for those who are wondering where my email address comes from. Okay. So Internet of Everything. It's very simple, very mathematical engineering type. Yeah, plus, minus, equals. So you all know about the Internet of Things. Who have not heard about the Internet of Things? Oh, okay. Who has not heard about Fitbit? Who has not heard about the Google self-driving car? Yeah, I know. So that's part of the Internet of Things. Sensor technology like the Fitbit, self-driving cars, yeah. Technology. So we said, what's more? How you can get technology adopted. I think as engineers or technical guys, we are very fascinated by technology, the flashing lights, the boxes. But in the end of the day, you want to get it adopted out in the world, in companies, in society. So there's more than the pure technology. And that's why IoE, which was defined by Cisco, by the way, not by me or by us, is the technology piece, IoT, the data which is generated by self-driving cars, by Fitbits, whatever. Then the processes, essentially, changing behavior in organizations and personally, and also the people, new skill sets required. So we're looking at all these different components. Yeah? And if we think about the classical user experience design, UI, that's probably here more the data and the Internet of Things application design. And if we think about customer experience more broadly, we go probably towards the people and the processes and what impacts them. So there was an IoT community already in Sydney when we started 12 months ago, an IoT community. That other guy is the hardcore engineer who built the electronics and the boards into the programming. And there was not much about thinking about the users of the technology, thinking about the business reason behind it. So we decided essentially to create a new community. So the agenda for today, or for my part at least, is talk a little bit about the IoE community network, to talk about the IoE reference architecture, and also about then customer design and IoE and how we think this fits together. And as Joe mentioned, yeah, maybe some of you can help us with this journey. So the community network is essentially currently a network of 8 different local communities. Part of them we built from scratch. Part of them we built or collaborate. Yeah? So we have a couple of them in Australia, here in Sydney, in Perth, Melbourne, and Brisbane. We have one in Korea, Singapore, Sao Paulo, and Johannesburg in South Africa. And probably we'll get something in the US and in Europe, Netherlands, and Germany in the next couple of months. Yeah? So our goal is really to get people from all over the world, because depending on the country you are, there are always differences from an industry perspective, from a cultural perspective, and we give what to people in the community give the opportunity to get this global perspective. Yeah? And so we have our local startups or our local meetups essentially in the different regions, but we also do global projects essentially, or we have started global projects. 12 months ago, we said, where do we want to stand in 12 months from now? For example, from a member base globally, we said 12 months, let's have 1,000. Yeah, that's approximately half of what you guys currently have. At the moment, we are a little bit over 4,500 globally already. And one of these global projects which we run across the board, and as we said, we have members in Europe, in the Americas, in Africa, in Asia, and also in Australia, is the reference architecture project. So if you build an IoE solution, if you go out there, yeah, like with every solution, or like you build a house, just think about building a house. Yeah, you make a plan of a house or a city plan, essentially, and that's what it is. If you get out, you build an architecture first before you actually build the solution physically, create, program the solution, whatever. The thing is, you can always start from scratch. You have some ideas, and then you start, how does the solution look like? Yeah, but honestly, much of the stuff which you are doing and thinking about, it's a great idea. Someone else in the world has already done it. Okay, so reference models or reference architectures in the technology world help, or also in the business world help, that you don't need to start from scratch. You have something you can customize at the end of the day. Okay, so we said, and there are a lot of reference models out there, business process models for banks, for example, technology models for service-oriented architectures, you name it. But we said there's nothing so far out there in the IoT space. And then we were saying, okay, that's a cool opportunity to engage the guys from all over the world to build essentially this reference architecture for specific industry, for example, health, and that's what we will talk today, essentially, how we started there. You guys can say these guys are crazy. They're running a local meetup, non-volunteering, and they want to do a global reference model. So how can they be successful? It's impossible, right? That's why I have Mission Impossible on my ringtone, by the way, on my mobile, if you hear it. Yeah. So it was very clear that as a local community, if you don't have the brand, essentially, you cannot be successful. No one takes you seriously, right? Yeah. So what we started very early on last week, engaging big global organizations, like, you probably guys don't know it, but put it out here anyway, at least most of you, called the Industrial Internet Consortium, which was created by such small companies like, let me think, what was it? GE, Intel, Cisco, IBM, and AT&T, and has approximately 500 members, or also the Open Group, who drives essentially architecture standards globally. And we are discussing them essentially to develop kind of open source model for reference architecture for the IoT. Our team is currently around 30 worldwide. Yeah, and we see how we can collaborate with these global communities. Okay, so what has this to do with user experience, interaction design, or whatever? So we have different components. Yeah, we have a strategy piece, we have a business operations piece, processes, roles, responsibilities, skills. We have technology pieces, the Fitbits, the computers, the self-driving cars. But I think the experience, if I take a Fitbit, so I bought a Fitbit, okay, because I was fascinated by the technology. After 1 month, I put it into the drawer and never touched it again. Because the experience was not great. I had this counter, 10,000 steps. Is this relevant for? It blinks, I have to reload it. What's the value for me? Yeah, if I'm maybe competitive and I want to talk to my mates essentially and say, you know what, I have 9,000 today. How many do you have? Great, yeah. But not everyone is competitive, yeah. So I think technology adoption, how do you get it? About the design, how you experience the product and service. Yeah? And as I said at the beginning, you remember, I said the IoT community here in Sydney was very tech focused, and we wanted to give it a business bent. And what we also said, after we give it this business bent and find the balance between technology and the business side, it now goes into the customer experience side. What we did essentially, we started partnering with other communities. For example, the health tech community here in Sydney, or the Australian Architecture Network. And one of the ideas was essentially come today here is essentially to see, is there an opportunity to collaborate and bring all these different bits and components here together. That's the call for volunteer. So what we need to do, it's what you guys do essentially. Yeah, sorry for the competitive message here, but maybe you did it already. Yeah. This was an experiment. So 12 months ago, I had no idea if this works. And I said, we run it 12 months and see if we shut it down or we go the next step. After 12 months, being 8 locations globally, we said, okay, there's something to it, let's continue. And obviously we have a Twitter handle and all this kind of stuff, need to build web presence. Anyway, more important, I think, actually, is the second one. It's a new technology. There's a lot of startups currently coming up in the IoT space, and we actually want to support with pro bono consulting or work the startup space from an almost consulting perspective. And one example sits here, which is Haroon. So Haroon is essentially a medical doctor. He can introduce himself and came with this idea, which he will talk about in the health tech space. But he is not a technologist, at least not a hardcore technologist. Yeah? So we are currently working with him since a couple of months to build a business model canvas, a value proposition design, so the whole architecture, strategy, business, technology. Yeah? And there's also missing piece around the customer experience, obviously, or the user experience. Yeah? So he will tell us a little bit what he is doing. Yeah? And what we're also doing besides providing pro bono consulting or hours to startups, we have also started engaging major technology vendors like the Microsoft and the Ciscos of this world to provide their product software for free for startups to build at least a prototype, essentially, for IoE technology. Yeah, some of the vendors like SAP and Microsoft, they have existing programs in place. Other players, essentially, they're thinking about it. Plus, we are also working with the vendors to bring their very product-specific architectures into the reference architecture and create a layer which is generic. So if you then have vendor A, B, or C, yeah, like a database system or whatever, or phone, that's the reference architecture, and then you can design your solution, your IoE solution, and then once you have it, you can decide with which vendor you go, essentially. That's a little bit of the idea. That's enough. I took already more than 5 minutes, and I gave it more back to Haroon to talk a little bit about what we are doing, or he is doing.
Yeah, people hear me all right. Like Peter was saying, do I have to use both of these?
No, you can use the lecture if you want.
Okay, all right. Like Peter was saying, I'm a medical doctor in one of these hospitals, and this really comes from a very personal story. You know, this lady here is fictional, but this is a lady that I see every day. And I might start with her story. So Mrs. Smith is is a type of lady that I see every day in my hospital. And this lady, like many others that I see, comes from a retirement village. And she's got a bit of dementia, but she's got a great life. And one day, she develops a slight urinary infection that throws her off balance. Normally what happens, though, the people that she knows, they will come to her and they'll play some nice music, and she settles down, and they give her some antibiotics orally. The GP that she knows will give her some antibiotics, and she settles down. She never has to go to the hospital, and everything is normal, and she lives a life. On this day, what happens is, this is just before the weekend, the GP is away, and the nurses who know her normally are away. Yeah, and what happens is, because of that, they see this lady, she's a bit upset, they send her to the hospital. She goes to the hospital, no one knows nothing about her. They give her antibiotics that she's allergic to, gets admitted into the hospital. Then while in the hospital, because it's a foreign place and she's demented, she falls down, breaks her hip, and never ends back going to the place that she always has lived. The problem here is a very familiar problem with the healthcare system. We have information silos. And you know what happens in the community, we don't know in the hospital, and that results in a one-size-fits-all solution, and that very often doesn't have good outcomes. And that's a problem that we're trying to solve. And what we're trying to do today is kind of flip the whole equation on its head, and we're trying to start with the patients. So the project that we are on about is, I wish I could is using Internet of Things, like,
Take the mic if you're gonna walk.
yeah, sorry, that's what I'll say here. So using Internet of Things to get to pervasively monitor the patient, get real-time data onto integrated platforms which everyone's able to access. So everyone knows about the patient at all times, and the patient's able to allow access to everyone. So integration is one thing. The second part of it, though, is it's just not enough to have integration. We need to have technology that relates to the patient very personally. And personalization and user experience comes in here. And there's been a lot of studies as recently as last month here in Sydney. There's a trial called the Text Me trial, and all people did was they engaged the patients better through, by personalizing the solution to them, taking their health metrics and giving them actionable care plans. And what that did was it actually cut down the representation rate to the hospital by about 50% for heart failure. That's not something that normally happens. I don't think there's any cardiologist in Sydney who can claim that. User design helps. It helps engage people. It helps people be more compliant. And some examples of the user design is this one, for instance. This thing on the right tells you, sorry. Okay. So this thing on the right, this is a Health of a Mobile app. What it does, it takes the data and puts it in context to you and tells you what you need to do to get better. The one on the left is a newly designed another IoE, a walking frame, which gives you data about the patient's or the person's gait, side-to-side sway and anterior-posterior sway. What that helps us do is helps us pick up when he's unsteady on his feet. And when that goes onto an integrated platform, so the patient's son or daughter who lives miles away is all of a sudden able to reach out to the doctors and prevent that fall. And falls cost billions of dollars and destroys people's lives. So that's what we're on about. So there is a role for user design, and it'll just increase as we go, in the healthcare setting, and it's a nice field to be involved in. Can be very rewarding too. All right.